Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About It. I am your host, Taylor, and today we're talking some more sex, guys. And I'm really excited to chat about some more of this stuff with you all. And I know from previous episodes, it seems like you guys had a lot of questions related to sex. So today in this episode, I'm definitely going to answer some of your questions about how to increase libido, about ethical non-monogamy, aka consensual non-monogamy, talking about things like advice for starting to use sex toys, and also my guest for this episode is a marriage and family therapist. And so we'll be discussing how to even become a sex therapist with her. And I'm also kind of in my own process of becoming a sex therapist, being certified in sex therapy. So I'll share a little bit of that with you guys as well. And just to tell you a little bit more about our guest, we have been Instagram friends for a while, and she's a marriage and family therapist, Colby, and she practices out of Philly. She does individual, couples, and sex therapy. When it comes to individual work, she's doing things around LGBTQAI and other issues, depression, anxiety, assertiveness, coping skills, interpersonal and family relationships, trauma and recovery, and body image. And when it comes to couples therapy, she can work on things like communication and conflict resolution, healing after infidelity, loss of connection and intimacy, exploring non-monogamy like polyamory, swinging, or open relationships, etc., separation, divorce, and co-parenting, peaceful decoupling, also known as conscious uncoupling, mismatched sex drives, which we will get into in this episode. And then when it comes to sex therapy, some of the issues that she works on are kink and BDSM, fetishes, mismatched sex drive again, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, lack of desire, pain during sex, sexual addiction and sexual compulsivity, performance anxiety, and one of my favorite words, shame, which is so prevalent when we talk about sex, and which is part of why I think you guys have so many questions about sex, and want me to cover it, because I think a lot of the conversation and the dialogue around sex is either shame-filled or it doesn't happen because there's shame. So I'm really excited to break through some of that shame related to sex and get chatting about some of these issues. So without any further ado, we can start chatting with Colby now. So Colby, thank you so much for chatting with me today and coming on the show.
Hi, Taylor. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I love anytime I get the chance to talk with another professional on here and get kind of personal and just learn a little bit more about, your experience professionally and personally. So I was hoping you could kind of start us off with just kind of walking us through some of your journey as to, how you got here, what kind of schooling you decided to take, and what kind of led you to be a marriage and family therapist.
Yeah, those are always good questions. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny for me. I always joke that I fell into it, which is not something I recommend. You definitely shouldn't fall into this career, but I look at it as definitely a positive, that I'm very lucky and grateful and privileged that I found it when I did. Yeah. I originally wanted to be a surgeon, and in the same round that I was deciding whether to enter med school or take a year off, I did a rolling deadline, ended up in my program that I graduated from, which is what I'm so lucky to have. So I went to a marriage and family therapy program because I knew I wanted to work directly with people as quickly as I could. I wanted to enjoy school, but I really wanted to get out into practice. Mm-hmm. And from what research I did at the time, trying to learn about what the difference is between MFTs, social workers, licensed professional counselors, all the different titles, was that MFTs really could get out there and work clinically the quickest in terms of a private practice setting, especially. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went for that. Yeah. I chose a program that specialized in sex therapy because that's what I knew I wanted to specialize in. Mm-hmm. And there are not too many of those programs.
Yeah. How did you know that sex therapy was something you wanted to specialize in?
I just knew, it wasn't about being unique or cool just for the sake of it, but I knew I just didn't want to do the average therapy or what we know to be therapy in the standard sense. Mm-hmm. I knew I wanted to take it a step further, specialize in something, but definitely in sexuality. It's something that we just don't talk about enough. And I've always, for many reasons, which, it's too long of a story for right now, but I've always felt very comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Even from a young age, even when it was uncomfortable, I was still comfortable in a weird way. And I joke about it now. I say, like, let's get comfortable with discomfort.
Yep, totally.
So I love that about it.
Yeah. What do you think made you so comfortable talking about sex at such a young age? Was that something that, like, your family you just grew up around that kind of openness around uncomfortable conversations?
I want to give my family some credit, but no. I mean, they weren't like really openly sex negative, but they weren't really sex positive. I didn't get like great sex education from them. It wasn't like a super open dialogue. We're all shamed in subtle ways, and my family is no different in that sense. But I think I experienced a lot. I think I repressed a lot from an early age without even realizing it. And so I knew what it felt like to be stigmatized without even talking about it. And so I just immediately didn't want anyone else to feel that way. So I guess I approached it head on. Yeah. And that's always been sort of how I approach life.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that kind of like, I'm going to bulldoze through this shame and I'm going to just take this on.
Exactly.
I would say I had similar. I mean, my parents were no less, open about talking about sex than the rest of society, but I was always so TMI with everything. Like anytime I would make out with someone, I'd be like, Mom, I made out with this person. Anytime, like if I would get like fingered even, I'd be like, Mom, is this normal? Like when you get fingered? And she'd be like, Taylor, too much information, too much information.
Oh, I love that. No such thing. I always think no such thing as TMI whenever someone says it to me.
Yes. I would always attribute it to watching 16 and Pregnant. Cause I was probably like 14, 15 when that came out, and my mom and I would watch it together. And then, I would talk to her about all my sex stuff, and I'd say, well, Mom, this is how I'm going to break the cycle of everyone being pregnant at 20 in our family. Like, I'm going to have to talk about these things.
There you go. Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely had some 16 and Pregnant in my family as well. It was weird that I was always viewed as like snobby, or I was the weird one for being like interested in education, and maybe I talked a little bit differently. I never thought I did. I definitely talked pretty casual, but I guess compared to them, I was very snooty.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm no stranger to using words that I think are really normal and then being called snooty and condescending for them. So I feel you there.
We get used to that for sure.
Yes, definitely. And I'm curious what specific program you actually went to. I'm assuming this was on the East Coast. Yeah.
Yes. Philadelphia is where I'm based, and that is where I went to school. It's Thomas Jefferson University.
Okay.
I always kind of follow that up with Counsel for Relationships, because that's really where the training happens. I mean, certainly the university is legitimate in its own right, but really a lot of the professors, a lot of people that started this program really came from the Counsel for Relationships, which is a very old organization that was kind of like the home of family therapy back in as early as the 30s, I think.
Okay.
So it's been around a while, and they've really like expanded over the years, and they joined with Jefferson about 10 years ago to create this program.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's interesting being in Philly too, because Widener is the other school over there.
Okay.
They're not competitors in any sense because they are different, but to have two big, well-known like sex therapy kind of programs in the same city is interesting, or same state.
Yeah. I wish that I had looked into that more when I was applying to different grad schools. I just kind of went for like the umbrella of things, just doing mental health counseling, that I felt like, if I want to do couples work, I can still do couples work. If I want to do something more clinical, I can do something more clinical. But like at my heart and at my gut, I'm like, like doing sex therapy. All right. So it's time for a short break, but I also just want to say that this short break is super, super relevant to everything we're talking about today. And then I find super important, and I could really go off on a whole rant about. Nowadays, we talk about self-care, and it's the thing now. Like everyone is focused on self-care, but are we ever actually really talking about like women's pleasure as a form of self-care? I think female masturbation has been so stigmatized, and I think it is so important to emphasize how amazing this form of self-care can be. And I really want to help you guys out and share this resource with you guys. So I want you guys to check out Plus One. I've tried several of their toys, and I want to say one of my favorites is the air pulsing arouser. It basically just like shoots out a bunch of little air on you and helps stimulate your clit. And it is amazing. I love several of their toys, but this one in particular is just really fantastic. And I want to share, yes, I'm talking about self-love here, but that there are actually some legitimate benefits to masturbation. When you orgasm, it releases dopamine, which is a chemical associated with pleasure. It helps you feel good and puts you in a better mood. It helps like release anxiety. In addition, the hormone oxytocin, which is released during orgasm, helps lower cortisol levels, and cortisol is a main stress hormone. Therefore, masturbation to orgasm can help reduce stress. So honestly, this is a form of self-love that I highly encourage we practice as women. You can discover what you like, see what feels good, and love yourself first. You don't have to have a partner to be able to enjoy yourself and, orgasm or touch yourself. So really hope you guys check them out. You can go to myplusone.com and check out their toys. Many of them are fully waterproof. They come with rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. It provides hours of fun, and they're super easy to clean. So one of my favorites, again, is the air pulsing arouser that I hope you guys check out and plan a little date night for yourself, ladies, because it is exciting and honestly very needed. So again, check them out at myplusone.com. And now we can get back to the show. So your program, it was specific to sex therapy. So when you graduated, then you were already kind of like a certified sex therapist.
So certification for sex therapy through ASECT, which just stands for the American Association for Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. Yes. Long name, so we call it ASECT. The certification for that is actually very long and strenuous, but the program did check a lot of the boxes that prepares for the end result of that. So I am still working towards ASECT licensure, which takes forever, and I'm not in a huge rush because I'm still a valid sex therapist without it. But it helps. Yeah, there's a lot of like gatekeeping with organizations like that, and there's good and bad to gatekeeping. We want people to be held accountable and to have these boards, but it also is a big limiter for a lot of people that also deserve to be in this field.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, I have heard that the ASECT certification is very, very lengthy and very strict. Takes a while to get. Expensive. Yes, all the things. I'm looking at getting certified. Well, not necessarily fully certified, but getting training through the Sexual Health Alliance. I've taken a training with them, and it went really well. And they don't provide supervision or any of that kind of stuff yet, but basically all the training and education prepares you for ASECT certification. So after their program, I could be a certified sex therapist because I'm already a psychotherapist. So now I would just have that training. But to be ASECT certified, I'm like, that would be a whole other ball game to enter into.
Right. Yeah. And there definitely are lots of like sex therapy training, certificate programs that are really awesome. And for, depending on what you really want to do with your entire career, that's often all you need. So it's really just a choice. And if you're already working towards it just by inherently, like with the work you're doing, why not? Which is really where I'm at with ASECT. But so I was happy just to get built-in sex therapy training versus like you're saying, like a lot of people go after like initial, more general, like master's or PhD program.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
So I did Stevenson University in Baltimore County, and then that was for just a bachelor's in psych with a minor in human services. And then I went to Hopkins in the city for a master's in clinical mental health counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you like?
I liked it a lot. It was, I mean, I was so young doing that program, and I grew so much throughout it, not only as a professional, but personally as well. And one of my favorite things about the program was, the fact that they didn't require that I take the GRE. Just when I was looking at different schools and stuff, I was just like, this seems so silly that I would have to take the GRE to be a therapist. Like, what does this actually have to do with the field I'm going into? And they were KCREP accredited, which helps give me hours post-graduation, which was really helpful. And just the amount of support that was in the program. I mean, just all around great professors, great resources with it throughout the city. So I really enjoyed the program. And part of me is like, I want to just go back to school and be in another program like that, because it was such a good time. I
definitely think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like one of the things that I loved about the program is that so much of the work is your own kind of self-reflection.
Exactly.
And I feel like, when you go and do maybe an MBA or something like that, it's a little less personal and it's more like skills based. And, for me, it was just so important that they had this emphasis on like getting to know your triggers, getting to know your blind spots, and all of these things. Because it was like, this is really important going into the field of work that we're in. And it's the kind of work that I love doing. I love working on that personal growth and that reflection. So that piece to me was like, grad school's awesome.
Right. Yes, it's hard, but it's so awesome. And I think that is like the number one thing about a therapy graduate program. Like, we have to work on ourselves. We have to do that. That is I had friends that were so jealous. Like, you're not even really doing anything. Like, you're just talking. You're just talking about yourselves. I'm like, that is work.
Yeah.
It's serious work. And we have to be, it's interesting because we're often preaching, like, we don't have to be perfect to be therapists.
Yes.
That is for sure. But we also do need to be doing certain work. It's not about the end result, I guess, per se, but that we're doing the work constantly and checking in with ourselves.
Totally. And that, I think, too, is a large part of why I'm drawn to the career itself, because long term, I mean, throughout life, a strong value of mine is always learning and always reflecting and always finding areas of growth. And when you're a therapist, you're always learning from your clients. You're always reflecting on yourself. So it's just like a lifelong, journey of reflection, which I think is super exciting and awesome. Certainly not for everyone, but I'd rather do that kind of emotional work than be like, doing someone's taxes or like crunching numbers. Like that gives me a headache. So I want to get a little bit into kind of what you do as a sex therapist. I covered a little bit kind of in the intro, just some of the different issues and problems that people can come to you with. But people were curious kind of why they would go to a sex therapist, like what kinds of things they would work on.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always a good question. So a lot of sex therapists do a lot of the traditional sex therapy work that we think of, like sexual pain, erectile dysfunction, mismatched desire in couples, low libido in either men or women or neither. Those are sort of some of the things we hear about often. With what I do, a lot of people come to me more for a demographic reason than an issue reason, which basically means I specialize in working with like queer people, kinky people, non-monogamous or poly people. And so they might need help with those things. That definitely is a portion of my caseload. But sometimes it just means that they want a therapist that understands all of that, both not to judge them, but also so they don't spend their time and money explaining and teaching their therapist about these things.
Yeah.
So I definitely see a combination of all of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The whole not having to explain piece, because I think most therapists have a kind of the basic understanding of doing work around sex. But I think that there are still a lot of therapists that get very uncomfortable discussing sex with their clients. And oftentimes their clients are uncomfortable talking about sex. I've had clients in the past, especially for me, being a young person, when I did work with people who were in their 40s and 50s, we would still discuss sex, but I could tell for them, there were parts of it that they felt like, am I going to understand some of these things? Are they going to have to kind of teach me some of these things that they've grown interested in over time? And I always did my best to make sure that it was an open, honest conversation, and doing my own kind of work outside of that to make sure that they weren't feeling like they had to educate me on these things, but that we were kind of in the same boat.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome to be able to just make sure you're doing the work outside of it and communicating what your limits are. Because none of us are going to know everything, and that's totally fine. We can refer out worst case scenario. We can also just consult with each other about certain topics. There are definitely things that I don't know a lot about that intersect with things I do know lots about.
Yeah.
So navigating that can be interesting at times.
Yeah. All right. So I want to take a short break here. I want to talk about something that I know might not really be on your mind, or maybe it's something you've procrastinated. It wasn't really on my mind a ton, but as I think about it, I am such a planner, and I'm really happy that I've got this done now. So I really want you guys to check out trustandwill.com. It's estate planning that is completely simplified. It takes 10 minutes. It's all online. They have people available to instantly answer questions. And seriously, it is so easy. You can do it for your family, do it for your loved ones. Guardianships start at $39, wills at $69, and trusts at $399. And right now, I want to help you guys out with doing this. You can take 10% off by going to trustandwill.com/Taylor or entering promo code Taylor at trustandwill.com. Again, that's take 10% off by going to trustandwill.com/Taylor or entering promo code Taylor at trustandwill.com. I hope you guys check that out and can get a little bit of peace of mind. But for now, we can get on back to the show. When you say kink, can you maybe just touch a little bit on that as to what kind of things would be considered kink, or what kinds of things you would work with people on related to that?
Yeah, so kink is really just an umbrella term for anything related to BDSM, anything not really vanilla, as we say. So it could be that someone has a fetish or a kink that they want to explore. Recently, I've had quite a few middle-aged to older men that have been carrying around this fetish for years and years and years and never told anyone, and just now are deciding to explore it. Or it's caused issues in their life in really indirect ways that they had no idea. It really came back to that.
Yeah.
So it could be an exploration. It could be someone just needing to be understood when they say that they want to be slapped around, and that's not why they're coming to therapy. They don't need to be rescued. Yeah. That is what they're into. So there's definitely a spectrum there. It can also just be help navigating the negotiation process that happens within the kink community, and being able to talk about consent and your interests in a safe and sexy way.
Yeah, trying to figure out what other people are into, what their boundaries are, communicating all of that, I think can definitely feel like tricky waters for people. So then are you finding that people are coming to you solo and trying to navigate how to have those conversations with other people, or that they are bringing in some of their partners and trying to have those conversations?
Yeah, I think I definitely see both within all these different subtopics that I talk about. I think with kink, right now at least, I have a lot more individuals that are doing the work on their own, and we might be talking about their relationships or their sexual connections, but not always bringing them in. They certainly can. Yeah. I'm certainly happy to do that work as well. It really just depends on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the questions that I actually got was someone saying, I'm naturally very kinky during sex, but my boyfriend isn't. How do I get him to act along with me? I imagine that's something that you've had to cover along this topic in sessions.
Yeah, so it's interesting too. So there's people, maybe that's what I could gather from just that one line, that are kinky and have these interests, but they're not like deep in the community. They're not like super upfront and open about it when they're starting to date someone. And that can be a totally different way to navigate it than someone who's like truly like a lifestyle kinky person.
Yes.
Both are super valid. Doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you're on, but it is a different communication process. So with that question, I would say just sit down and talk about it outside of sex, not during, at least not at first.
Yes.
Definitely later, but just sharing like, here are my interests, you know, depending on that partner, if, you know, he's versed or not versed in any of this, you might end up having to explain some of it. And I always say, as long as you're not explaining why you like it, but more so like what pleasure you get from it or whatever you get from it, so that you're not justifying, you don't have to justify anything in terms of kink, but someone might need a little bit of help understanding what it's about for you, which is, I think, totally okay.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I don't think I would have thought of that, of explaining to your partner what you get out of it. Like why that brings you pleasure. Yeah.
And sometimes we don't know. That's fine too. But sometimes we do. I get, especially with a little bit more what people might think of as extreme things or more serious kinky things. I get the question a lot about like, well, is this rooted in trauma? Like, is this coming from a place of hurt? And my answer is always like, it doesn't really matter, especially when they're asking in a clinical setting. Like if that's my client's goal is to look at that connection, of course we'll do that, but I'm not going to take it there because it's not going to change what validity it has today in their life, if it is coming from a place of trauma or not.
Yeah. Can you give an example of like what kind of a kink or fetish someone would or has kind of questioned that about?
Anything from like wanting to be choked or slapped to the more extreme end of people that do like rape play or non-consensual or consensual non-consent.
Yes. Yes.
So that is a little bit more tricky, but seriously, even down to the slapping and choking, people are like, why would anyone want that? And it comes from a place of ignorance or shame or stigma. So I understand the question a little bit, but it's also, we don't need a reason. It just, you might like it because it feels good. You might like the power exchange. There's a lot to it.
Yeah. And that's something like I've definitely discussed in the past on the pod, just about the consensual, non-consensual forced sex fantasies and also playing that out. So when they step outside of being a fantasy, and people, especially women, really struggling with this idea of feeling, I'm a feminist, I really I believe I am a strong, independent woman and I want to support women being strong, but this really turns me on and I feel like something might be wrong with me because I feel that. But that I think you brought up a great point that sometimes it is just that power play, that switch up of that power play that can turn people on. And I think a lot of work can be done to take away the shame.
Talking about like being a strong, independent, powerful woman, you are that. If you're enjoying or acting something like that out, you're in control.
Totally.
It's not rape. It's not forced. It's a scene that you've negotiated and consented to.
Very true. Very true. How, if you were to give kind of like an example or a story of how someone has or could kind of walk through this, of feeling like they're interested in this kind of dynamic, but haven't actually played it out yet with their partner, of what kinds of things they could say to kind of start up that conversation so that it is consensual, non-consensual forced sex and feels like something that they still have control over.
Yeah, I think that would take just a lot of conversations. If kink is not something that they are already really a part of and have an understanding of, I would definitely recommend professional help having that conversation. Just because it really depends. There's so much that goes into it. I think just keeping consent in mind, really like having a safe word, having built-in check-ins during the scene that you're planning, like timed built in where you're not even using your safe word, you're just checking in to see how it's going. Are some just, tips off the top of my head for that, but really getting some help around it is helpful.
Yeah, no, I think that discussing the kind of safe words and putting those built-in check-ins during is such a good way to like touch base with each other. And again, building more of those tools around having sex positive dialogue and getting more comfortable with talking about these things that sometimes feel really uncomfortable with our partner, but that ultimately provide greater connection for everyone.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
All right, so it's time for a quick little break here. I want to share with our lovely listeners one of my favorite products that I wear, and you guys have probably seen it in some of my photos on Instagram. I absolutely love wearing like nice, dainty jewelry, but I want to make sure it's good quality, and I don't want it to be ridiculously expensive, and I want it to also like be ethically made. That's very important to me, so I'm really excited to share with you guys Orate. I have a infinity bar necklace from them that is just absolutely adorable. I get so many compliments when I wear it. And like I said, it's ethically made in New York City. So they help empower women with the best jewelry options without sacrificing style. And so for every piece sold, a child in need receives a book to further their education. It's like amazing. Honestly, it was made by women for women, which I super appreciate. Gotta support my women ran companies. And personally, I love my necklace. I would highly recommend it. When people ask me, I'm always like, oh yeah, it's by Orate. Like, you should definitely check them out and use my code if you want to. So I want to offer this code to you guys. You can get 15% off your first Orate purchase. Go to oratenewyork.com/Taylor and use promo code Taylor. Again, that's AURATE. NewYork.com/Taylor for 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code Taylor. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let me know what your jewelry looks like. Tag me in it. Show me what you guys got. So yeah, enjoy that, and we can kind of get back to the show now. So I want to get a little bit into like, as we just kind of touched on about like the conversation piece that people can start having. So much of the questions that I received, and I've noticed is kind of like a pattern, like this, every time I ask about people and whatever kind of sex questions they have, majority of what I get is women saying that, that they are struggling with sex drive. So, you know, I'll go through and read a few of these, questions here, but they all are kind of along this line. How to handle it when you and your partner have different sex drives. How do I get out of my head when my boyfriend and I are being intimate? Letting your partner know you're bored. How to get back a sex life when you've hit a really rough patch with your partner. How to build sex drive. I love my boyfriend, but we don't have sex frequently. What to do when you want less sex than most men, being more present in the moment, when your partner loves sex and you only want it occasionally, low sex drive, why, how to increase sex drive. My boyfriend and I both have low sex drives. Is that bad? How to get over body insecurity during hookup and sex. Girls who struggle to orgasm with their partner. And it just kind of goes on about this. Would love if you talked about ways to increase a woman's sex drive. Okay.
There's so much there.
Yes, a lot. Navigating when you and your partner have differences in sex drives. So a lot of struggling with sex drive.
Yeah. So let's start there. That definitely is a common denominator in a lot of those questions.
Very.
My gut reaction, or my first reaction, is just to normalize it. Like I feel the stress just from hearing the questions.
Same.
Oh God, the intensity, the stress. It's fine. Like, whatever your sex drive is fine. That said, like, it's probably not low or high. Like, you're probably just like, that's where you're at. Nobody lines up perfectly. So the mismatched sex drive, which I know I said was a common presenting issue in therapy, I'm labeling it that because that's how people label it, not even because I necessarily want to think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm curious too, like, how often people think a normal quote unquote sex drive is. Like if women are actually just feeling this sense that they should want to have sex all the time, and every time their partner wants to have sex, that they should also be wanting to have sex,
right?
Which is a lot of pressure.
Right. You could have the same, quote unquote, the same sex drive and still not be wanting it at the same time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's just, I think rejection is something that the rejection that people feel when their partner doesn't want to have sex with them. Like that's definitely one of the issues wrapped in this giant thing.
Totally.
Is that it doesn't have to be rejection. I obviously understand where people are coming from when they say that, but we need to work on that. That can't be the response, because that does not create a healthy sexual communication. We really need to focus on owning our own sexualities first, and then, tying them into a partnership. And so understanding like what helps you get in the mood. If people are wanting to up their sex drive or have more interest in sex or be more open to having sex when their partner does, sure, there are ways we can do that. I think desire is something that people don't even really understand what they're saying when they say it. And arousal. We don't talk about arousal. We talk about desire, but arousal is super important too. Like the standard model for all of this is spontaneous desire, which is where I think the misinformation and the shame and the anxiety come from, because the idea that we should just spontaneously out of the blue feel like, ooh, I want to have sex, and then go find it.
Yeah. That's kind of rare.
Right.
And usually it's hormonal for me.
Right. It's totally normal to have that, but it's not the norm. So like responsive desire is really what is more of the norm, especially with women. And I don't often like to gender things, but that one is definitely common, just more on not a biological standpoint, but more so on a sociocultural standpoint. Especially if you have a partner, it's even easier, because you can have that communication with your partner outside of the moment to say like, hey, instead of just saying, do you want to have sex? Like maybe we could start doing a little bit of the things that I enjoy and see if I then feel the desire. And sometimes you might, sometimes you might not. But if you have that communication built in, there's more comfort in saying like, well, we kissed a little, we touched a little, but I don't think I really want to go further. And that can be okay.
Yeah. I think it is so hard for people to not take it personally when someone else is not interested and or not, aroused. And I think that can often create some resentment and some pressure and some disconnect. And then, of course, your sex drive is going to lower after all those things come into play.
Right.
And that kind of like fuels even more of a little bit of a disconnection. And I think, I agree. I think part of what you said of, talking with your partner about some of the things that you like and exploring those things kind of on your own too, like with yourself of what turns you on and what feels pleasurable. I know for me, I'm like, I am most of the time totally terrified at the idea of initiating sex. Right. That for me, I'm like, nope, if someone wants to have sex, like they can initiate it and maybe I'll say yes. And that's so much pressure to put on your partner that I've had to like put myself in their shoes. But I think, communicating those things of like, I really love a good like 8th grade makeout. Like just give me a real good makeout. I'll be really turned on, and then I'll definitely want to have sex. And once you start communicating those things with your partner, I think you're both then kind of learning different tools to turn each other on, which can lead to more sex. And then when you're having that better quality sex, you want to increase your quantity of that sex.
Yeah, that's definitely a line that I can follow. But even if the goal isn't turning each other on or like building that, I mean, you definitely do want to build an understanding of like what turned your partner on and what turned you on. That's certainly important. But even having the comfort and safety that is built in communicating something like, I want to have a good old makeout session, or I really want to like sit on your lap and like grind a little with our clothes on, or like,
I love a good dry hump.
Yeah. Or like, maybe I just want you to go down on me. That's it.
Yeah.
and someone that's willing to do just that and not pressure you or to go further or feel like you have to now reciprocate something.
I have totally had this conversation in my current partnership because for me, sometimes I just love to just like be teased and just like to have that build up. And so to me, the end goal is not necessarily sex. And I think that just that piece in and of itself is so important to discuss with your partner, because for him, it's like, well, okay, yeah, like we're going to have sex. And I'm like, well, no, like we might, but I'm not making out with you with the assumption that we're going to have sex. Like sometimes I might just want to make out and fool around a little bit, but I'm not fully in the mood to have sex. And that sometimes those kinds of things are okay. But I think as you get older, and I think once you've had sex, that then the assumption is we're just going to continue to have sex now because none of these other things matter anymore because we've like done the ultimate kind of.
Right. Oh, yes. That brings up such another like big point, is that we should reframe sex a little bit more.
Totally.
Especially if you're having something like a low drive, or you're struggling with your relationship, or maybe you even have like some pain during sex. Like a lot of these issues can be really helped by reframing what sex means to you, and really debunking this idea that like, especially penis and vagina sex is like the top of the hierarchy, or that there even is a hierarchy. It's really harmful.
Yeah.
And so maybe sex is making out on the couch. Like maybe sex is just oral. And so figuring out what that is for you. And maybe sex for you is penis and vagina sex. That's cool too. Or maybe it all is sex. That's my personal take on it. Like I want all of it to be sex. I want to be able to say, I want to have sex, and let that mean that no one can really assume that, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. So I want to take a short break here. And I think it's really important to clarify something here. There's a lot of talk around CBD these days. And before I start talking about Hemp Fusion, I want to point out something that just makes them really unique compared to a lot of the other CBD brands that are out there. And that is that Hemp Fusion is CBD plus a bunch of other things. So most CBD brands offer just CBD, but Hemp Fusion actually incorporates other ingredients, other natural ingredients like omegas that help specifically create products when it comes to dealing with stress or trouble with sleeping or, needing more energy. So, we already have cannabinoids. I can never say this word right, so excuse me. Our bodies already have this in our system. And so when we use plant-based CBD, it just helps to naturally balance our body. So adding in these other things really just adds up to creating a better product that then hopefully, ends to a better day for you. And I really appreciate Hemp Fusion because they really add it all up. It's really the whole package, and they're available both online and at natural product retailers near you. They ship anywhere in the US, and I want to help you guys out. So you can use the promo code Taylor for 20% off your first order and free shipping at hempfusion.com. That's promo code Taylor. You can get Hemp Fusion shipped anywhere in the US. And again, that's promo code Taylor for 20% off your first order and free shipping at hempfusion.com. So be sure to check it out. Don't forget that promo code. Get yourself a little discount there. And I hope that it helps out. And I hope you guys take advantage of this because I love using my CBD. So let me know how it works out for you guys, and we can get back to the show. I'm curious. I did get a few questions that were kind of a specific subcategory of increasing sex drive, and one of those was: are there natural ways to heighten my libido while on antidepressants? Can you orgasm on antidepressants? How? #help. There was another one. SSRIs have done wonders for my anxiety, but killed my sex drive. What can I do?
That's probably the toughest one. SSRIs are really a bitch for sex drive. I always suggest, make sure you're checking in with your doctor. Like, make sure you need to be on that SSRI. Obviously, people do. I'm not saying you should get off of it for sex, but but really just making sure that that's not the only priority, because doctors often respond to us having sexual needs or that being a major concern for medicine is like, really, I'm trying to help you. Like, that's what you're worried about? Thought you came here for anxiety. Like, not that they're maybe that rash about it.
And I'd be like, well, guess what? Sex helps with my anxiety. So
exactly. And so like making sure that that's still a priority, and that's okay that it's a priority. You don't have to put anxiety or depression like on a pedestal over sex. So in terms of like ways to address it, I think going back to stuff we already said, really about reframing, maybe bringing toys into the bedroom a little more, things that feel like maybe lower stakes, or things that can be kind of more just here and there. They don't have to be as intense, because maybe you still have a sex drive, but it's more fleeting, or maybe it's just less often, but you really can still get there with a lot of communication, a lot of stimulation. So really just still being open to it, even if you're not feeling it in that spontaneous way that we talked about. Especially if you have a partner, because then there's already hopefully some safety in exploring without the pressure to go forward.
And too, I mean, I would encourage like some things that you know that we don't see in porn, like Lube, to kind of help with things.
Yes, I think everyone should use Lube no matter what. Like even if you have a body that's producing you a lot of natural lubricant, like it still can't hurt to put a little bit of lube or at least to have it around just in case.
One of my rules used to be that like I literally was not having sex unless I was like dripping wet. Like unless I was like fully wet all over, nothing was going inside. Not until then was I ready to have sex.
Right. And saliva is not lube. Let me just throw that out there. Saliva is not lube. For the people in the back.
Definitely not.
That's something.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes. I think we do see that in porn still a little bit. We definitely don't see, well, some porn I watch, they definitely pull out the lube right in the scene and just squirt it on there, which I think is awesome.
The one thing that, I mean, I've heard like several stand-up comics use this kind of bit, and I think maybe I've seen it once in porn where a guy like spits in her mouth, and I was like, as much as I love a good makeout, and that's certainly a like exchange of saliva, that's not something I want.
It's not for me either, but it's definitely more falls along the lines of like a power exchange thing, like maybe even a degradation thing or humiliation thing sometimes. It's interesting to see it in more of the mainstream vanilla porn, because I think it definitely has more of a place over here, but it's just even in that piece right there, there's so many things I want to go into, but I definitely want to answer some more of people's questions that they had. And one of these that I thought, I've talked a little bit about consensual non-monogamy on the pod, but this piece I have not spoken about before, and I have not encountered this with any clients or with any friends. So I'm curious what your response is to this. But someone asked how to explore sexual fluidity while in a heterosexual marriage. Okay. How to explore sexual fluidity within a heterosexual marriage. The question being that they want to open up maybe to do it. Is that, I guess, the premise here? They're not currently open? Okay.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like, this is a woman that was writing, who her follow-up question, she put 2 questions. The follow-up question was, have you ever used a strap-on? I would love to use it on my boyfriend because he would love it. So exploring those different like female and masculinity kind of energies, but in a heterosexual marriage. And my assumption on this is that if she's saying her boyfriend would love something like that then it sounds like he is open to exploring sexual fluidity. I don't know. I haven't encountered this before.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely something I think I talk about a lot. It's hard. Yeah, I have a little bit more questions, but we'll go on some assumptions. That's fine.
Yeah.
Pegging.
Yes.
Pegging's great.
Yeah.
She sounds like she's interested. Sounds like he's interested. My question is, are you waiting for a recommendation on a strap-on? It sounds like they're ready to go.
It does kind of, yeah.
So I would say the same with everything. Like, really just talking about it. Like, what are you excited about? What are you nervous about? And being open about those things going in and keeping them in mind, having a check-in, using lots of lube.
Yes. Yeah.
Strap on, like, go together to pick it out. If you have the money, invest in like a nice leather harness so that it's comfortable for the wearer. Start small. Don't be, you don't have to be a size queen or king from the start or ever.
It was one of my a little bit of background on this question. Last night, as I was talking with one of the girls that helps work on the podcast with me, and discussing the idea of using a strap-on with your partner. And, it's not something I've ever experienced before, but, that I was like, I know that, there is this kind of a myth or whatever about the guy's G-spot being in their rectum, anal, whatever you want to call it. Where, I've had boyfriends in the past who have really enjoyed finger play, especially like during blowjobs and whatnot. And I think there is a lot of stigma around heterosexual men being involved in any kind of anal play. And so it does sound like this person's heterosexual marriage has that level of openness and security, and that it,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That is obvious, but I, forget sometimes is that, the assumption that you're gay if you're a man that won something in your butt. That's not how sexuality works. It's about the person who is doing whatever the thing is to you. And even that is still really flexible. You can identify as heterosexual and have some sexual contact with the man, and your identity is still valid. I would want to encourage a little exploration, because it might be rooted in shame, but it might not be. And there is, the Kinsey scale, like the assumption is that we're all at least fluid on some level. Some are just choosing to express it more than others. The gender unicorn, there's a few different models that all have sort of their own set of issues, but the gender unicorn is something interesting to check out that I can link to you after this. That kind of explores the differences between like gender identity, sexual identity, and then sort of who you're romantically attracted to, and how those can be different or the same in various ways.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I also want to recommend everyone check out the company B Vibe. It's specifically butt stuff. The campaign right now that I have a few friends in, it's everyone's butts. And the idea is that every body has a butt. Yeah. Everybody is true. Everyone, but also like every physical body has a butt. And so that we should be normalizing this a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like even girls experiencing like doing anal sex is like, they're total sluts, and that like, oh my God, like you're like a really dirty, like kinky girl if you're into anal.
Right. Or that you're doing it for your boyfriend.
Yes.
To please him.
Yeah.
And not to please you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not going to lie, I've had like many girlfriends where they have really not enjoyed anal sex at all and have felt like it wasn't for them. And then I've been like, all right, let me talk you through this.
Right.
Like, let me give you some tips. And then they're like, oh my God, that was great. And I'm like, welcome to the club.
Yes, I totally agree. This is the one thing that there is a right and wrong way to do. Other things, not so much. But this one definitely has a sort of protocol that you need to follow, especially for the first time.
Yes, yes. Oh, thinking back to my first time, that was not, that was a difficult one. But yeah, I think there's so many, there's definitely a range of what I got from listeners, from the low sex drive to the sexual fluidity to some questions around non-monogamy. But another kind of like reoccurring one that was probably about, I'm so bad at numbers. If the sex drive questions were at about like 80%, I would say that this next one was probably at like 15%, 20% of people asking questions about exploring sex in your like mid-20s, of if it's unhealthy to still be a virgin in your mid-20s. What else did they ask? I'm trying to pull it up. Losing your virginity late. Just several questions around losing your virginity kind of as an adult and how that can be difficult.
Yeah, there's no such thing as late, and I honestly despise the terminology of losing virginity. There's no loss.
Yeah.
Virginity is really just like this patriarchal concept that does absolutely nothing for anyone. So, having sex for the first time at whether you're 14 or 24 is, yes, I'm not going to say it's the same exact experience because it's not. Yeah. You're probably a pretty different person at those different ages, but
very.
But the sex might be similar, like it's still a first time doing something, might be just as awkward. And that is almost like a rite of passage for some people. So, I don't think anyone's like not normal if they, whether it's intentional or not, like it happens when it happens. People have their different reasons for waiting too, which, I think has an impact on what that experience is like for them.
Definitely. And I think you're right of kind of reframing losing your virginity. And that so much of it is rooted in this, like, women being pure and waiting for that right person. And that there's so much like extra pressure that's put on that. And at the same time, a lot of shame if you don't uphold that. I think that can be damaging in so many ways.
You can't win if you do. You can't win if you don't. You're either a slut or a pure little angel, or an experience. Like you just can't win.
Yeah, and I think it's, I did receive a few messages that were actually in my DMs and not in the little question box, around people who have grown up pretty religious in the South and really wanting to like combat some of these ideals around sex, but finding it so difficult to express and explore their sexuality without feeling things like shame. And I think that is kind of, whether you've grown up super religious or not, I think just the whole concept of losing virginity and the messages we receive around sex being women are very damaging and very rooted in shame that make it difficult to explore these kinds of things in a confident way.
Right. Religion's a tough one too. I definitely am not an expert on that, like intersectionality of it all, but I just take a pretty like logic approach of like, does the God that you want to worship want you to feel like this? Like, does that feel okay? I don't think it does. No one loves that feeling, super religious or not. So I think like just keeping shame in the back of your mind of like, that's what this is. We have a name for it. It's not just this awful feeling that you're doing something wrong. Like this is shame that has been put upon you and you are in control of it and you can work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I try to think back to when I lost my virginity, and I remember I had just turned 15, and I remember being like, or maybe I just turned 16. I either just turned 15 or 16. And I remember being like, I am not having sex until I'm 18 years old, because then I'm officially an adult. That I was like, I am not going to have sex as, I guess I'd still be a teenager at 18. But that to me, I was like, I need to wait till I'm actually an adult, like for it to not be like a bad thing. Right.
legal age, the legality that we tie to sex too. I mean,
I was such a rule follower. I was like, no, like I need to be appropriate at all times.
Did your parents talk to you about sex? Was there like a connection there?
I remember my mom had asked me because when I was a freshman in high school, I had moved about a little halfway through like the first half of the year. And then I had got a boyfriend fairly soon after that. And we were hanging out a lot and whatnot. And I think at that time I was probably 14. Mm-hmm. And she asked me, you know, if I was interested in getting on birth control. And I was like, oh, Mom, like, I'm not even having sex. Like, why would I need to be on the pill? She's like, well, like, just in case, you know. And I was like, we're not even there yet. And I was like, I'm waiting. And then literally it was like, you know, a few months later that I was like, hey, I think I should maybe get on that pill.
That's funny.
And I was like, yeah, like, I think I want to do that soon.
She was ready before you were.
Yes. Yeah. But, and I think it was, you know, sex is so vulnerable. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with waiting to find someone you feel safe to share that with. I think that's so important to just being able to actually enjoy your time, even if it's not your first time ever having sex. But, you know, it was very important to me that I was with someone that I loved and that you know, he was my first love. But it's weird because even then in my first relationship, we did get into some pretty kinky stuff. And that was all kind of like my introduction into sex.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, it's always fun to hear how people find kink as well. Because sometimes it's quite accidental or early and sometimes it's really intentional. I think it's often pretty early just in terms of how quickly it gets to the front of the brain.
Very true. Very true.
I remember all the shame I had around, I mean, I still have plenty of shame, obviously, but I had so much shame, especially around like receiving oral, which I know is a lot of women experience that. And it's it's kind of ridiculous now to think about, like, I was 14, 15, like what reason did I have to feel that my vulva was somehow like weird or bad? Like, who taught me that and why? Like, I was, you know, we're kids still. I feel very lucky to have had a boyfriend at that time who loved going down on me. And so just through how much he loved it, like, I learned to love it. Which I think is also something we're taught that is not good, that we should love ourselves in all these different ways before someone else can. And that's such bullshit. Like, that was a healing experience for me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm so glad you had that.
Thank you. Yeah. It just taught me, like, oh, okay, it's totally normal and it's fun. Not even just about giving me pleasure. It's fun for you to do it. Like, whoa, what a crazy idea.
Yes. So. Yeah. And I think it's interesting when, you know, I think we didn't touch a lot on consensual non-monogamy, but I think, you know, when people start kind of exploring some of the different ways of having open relationships, I think a large part of that can be because of differences in sexual interests and, one partner really loving receiving oral and their partner not enjoying giving oral. And then they do have a partner that they can enjoy that with, and they have a partner they can enjoy this with. And, kind of taking some of that pressure off of like this one person fulfilling every single need.
I think that's definitely a reason. One of the main reasons that people can find non-monogamy really helpful, especially open relationships versus like full-blown polyamory, which is more focused around the relationship itself. Similar to like if we use the other assumption that we had about that previous question about the heterosexual marriage and sexual fluidity. A lot of people who identify as bisexual are not straight, but land in hetero-presenting marriages or relationships, often struggle with that idea that they're losing a part of themselves. And so that's sort of the way that I found non-monogamy for myself. As an option was like, I want to be able to be with many different kinds of people. And it started off with gender. Now it's definitely not about that, but that was sort of a doorway into it for me.
Yeah. And do you find, are you in non-monogamy, do you consider yourself poly or do you consider yourself open?
So I don't like the term open for me, so I don't, but I also don't really identify as poly right now just because I'm single. I'm a widow And so it's been 2.5 years, so it's not super fresh right now, but I'm still figuring out what I really want.
Yeah.
Cause you mourn a person, but you also mourn that whole future. And so I get trying to reframe it as I get a chance to sort of even another time look at what I want and to make that happen for myself. So I definitely know that I will never be 100% monogamous, but I'm a Cancer, so I might want to nest and get in there with someone and then figure out what I want in terms of like adding other people or not. So we'll see.
I feel that very hard.
Yes. Yeah.
as a fellow Cancer.
Lovely.
Yes.
Lovely.
I feel it very hard. And so then in your marriage, were you guys just monogamous? And this is now kind of something that you've found and started exploring after that?
We were technically not married. We identified as, like a partnership. So I say widow, but, we were playing with it.
Yeah.
We were definitely like what people would consider like primary partners, which is not a term that everyone likes. And I agree with that, but just in terms of understanding the situation, we were pretty open with each other. He was very, focused on what made me happy, which, is complicated now, of course. So I definitely was the initiator in that sense. And I wanted what I wanted, and he would rather have had that than to lose me. So it's hard to talk about without thinking like, what would I tell a client telling me some of this? But, we were young and figuring it out together. So we didn't get a chance to really like full blown have a certain setup, but it was on our minds for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious if you're comfortable to kind of share a little bit about how you, after experiencing something like grief, have been able to kind of get back a little in the swing of things as you find yourself in a new chapter and a new transition of life. And a lot of some of the questions around that sex drive piece were focused on after a breakup, getting sex drive, after experiencing sexual trauma, getting sex drive. And in some form, these are kind of losses that people are experiencing.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a whole new book, feels like. I was a little bit like, not, I was a little hypersexual at first. I think I was in shock, and I always loved sex a lot. And I guess what people would consider a high sex drive I had. I'm in a new chapter of my new book right now in not having a super high sex drive, which is complicated and feels like a little bit of mourning of its own, even 2.5 years later. But I also wanted to take that opportunity to normalize the fluctuations that happen, even without such a big loss or transition. Those fluctuations still occur for most people. So it's tough. I think just like giving yourself compassion and checking in and like letting it be what it is has been my approach for the most part. Some people I think are driven more towards a much more active approach, because we all want to get shit done. We all want to be productive and make things happen and be in control. And what that loss really taught me was that I'm not in control in a good way, in a pressure relief kind of way, that I'll handle whatever's next. I don't need to worry about it. It's not here yet, but that I know that I'm strong enough to deal with it when it comes. And so sex is one of those things. Like, I'll have it when I want. I'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah. That's, I'm sure, a difficult place to get to, as, just having that approach overall in life, I think can be really tough, because we want to seek that comfort and we want to feel like we have that sense of control. And so just kind of letting things be where they are, and really having that compassion and space for ourselves to be okay with that, I think is definitely a tough place to be in. I'm curious if there's anything that you've done to try to help make that process easier, or I guess forms of like self-care, I suppose.
Yeah, I wish, sometimes I joke that you have to go through all the trauma I've gone through to get to this place. And, it's kind of true, but I also don't want that to be the only way to get here. So I think self-care, like really putting yourself first and not thinking of that as selfish. Like I really worry about myself first, and I have lower expectations of people, not in I'm jaded way, but just that we're all people fucking up and being busy and living our own lives. It's hard to see past our own perspective sometimes. So surrounding myself with people that get that and that understand this process for themselves and that can take care of themselves. People that I can trust to deal with their own shit are people that I want in my life.
Yeah.
So I've really stopped taking on people's crap. Like that's really the number one, I think, tangible thing that I can give as a method there.
I mean, that's a very good one because I think especially as women, and I'm also going to go there and say especially as like nurturing, caring cancer women, we do take a lot of people's shit. Yeah.
Right. We owe no one anything other than, decency and respect, like especially when it comes to dating and oh man, that's a whole other mess.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I had a quote unquote date with this guy and it was just so much. It was so much. And he really was. He was throwing a lot of shit at me that I was just like, this is not I just met you. Like, we need to take a step back. And he kept repeating it, and was very compassionate in this way of just saying, like, you don't owe me anything. Like, you really don't. Like, if you never want to talk to me again, if you never want to see me again, that's totally okay, Taylor. You don't owe me anything. And that was such a hard place for me to sit with because I was like, I know I don't, and I know I could never talk to you again. And like, part of me doesn't really want to, but at the same time, I feel that guilt and I feel like, oh, you are being nice and like, I don't think you're a bad person, but I do feel like I owe you things. I do feel like, I owe you a text back. I feel like I owe you a call back. And I feel like I owe you another hangout, and just taking that step back and like, even as he's saying it, like, you really don't owe me anything. And I'm like, I know I don't, but are you sure? Because I feel like I do. And it's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're taught. It's so ingrained. It's from an early age. Even the thing that we're hearing more about now, like you don't have to give grandma a hug, things like that, like consent, we don't owe anyone anything, especially when it comes to emotions. I'm trying to think about how to frame it right now as I'm thinking about it, but I see it in every situation. It shows up everywhere. It's definitely a theme of like, well, I can't say this because it'll upset them. Yeah. Or even tying it back to sex. I was just talking to someone today who asked for some advice. Speaking of saying no and not owing people things, that one's, I still struggle with that one because I do care and I do want to help. And so I'm always like, do I have the time? Do I have the energy? So I do check in with myself. I do that much. But something that he was saying was like, I'm having trouble coming the second time. Like if we do like a round 2 with sex and she's getting upset, she's feeling really like offended and taking it personally. Yikes. And I was like, oh no, that's not it. Gather, my man. This is not a client, obviously. I was like, and he's like, well, I told her it's all on me. And I'm like, that's not it either. Yeah. It just is, like you can have feelings about it, but like, look at those feelings. Like, why are you feeling so upset that your partner won't come? How is that about you? Yeah. So really like letting our shit be our shit and not making someone else's. Like, it's not helpful for anyone.
Yeah, that's a great example of it too, because I think it kind of loops back a little bit to some of what we spoke about earlier with rejection from your partner. And I think oftentimes women sometimes, and even men too, can take that as like a form of rejection. Right. And I think a while back it was like National Orgasm Day or whatever. And I had a little bit of a conversation around orgasms and like, sometimes it is okay to not orgasm. Sometimes you can't, and sometimes you can't come. And like, that's okay too. Like there is so much pressure on that. And, I've gone through my own journey with that I can share at a later date, but you're still able to have enjoyable sex in whatever form with a partner and it not involve everyone coming everywhere, you know?
Right. Especially when partners are trying to make it about them. Like, I'm going to make you come. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to succeed by making you come. Like, our sex is going to be good because you came. Like, it's the pressure and the value that we're assigning to it. That's the problem. Because I do want to push the agenda of like, female pleasure needs to be prioritized. And what people hear is that women need to come more. And that's totally true. But it's also not about that. It's about the pleasure. And so pleasure can be orgasm. Pleasure can be orgasm without coming. It can be, you know, there's so many different kinds of orgasm too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big part of that is setting aside your ego. Because, I mean, I was listening to like a Red Table Talk the other week, and Jada had talked about like how in her past relationships she thought she was showing up with love, but really it was her ego. And that like hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my God, Jada, like you're speaking to my soul here.
Right.
And I think, when it comes to like getting your partner to come, that like so much of that can be ego driven for you. And really it should be about that pleasure of, okay, is your partner actually getting aroused? Is your partner, you know, getting hard or getting wet? Like, are they really enjoying this? And not about like you proving your skills.
Exactly. I think that also answers one of the other questions you mentioned earlier from listeners about, oh shoot, I just lost it. Damn it.
Sex drive?
Damn it. Oh, staying present in the moment. Look, I just didn't stay present just now. How to stay present in the moment. Like, think about what you're bringing in, and maybe you need to shift your focus. Maybe your focus is in the wrong place, and that's what's keeping you not so much in the moment with sex.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my assumption here on a lot of the women that wrote in experiencing low sex drive and not necessarily initiating sex. And there were some people that did say that they didn't feel confident in their bodies with sex. And so I'm kind of intertwining the two. And my assumption is that a lot of the times women struggle with being present in sex. They struggle with initiating, and they struggle with having that sex drive because they're not feeling good about their bodies and with themselves. And, you know, it's a whole other episode on like women embracing their body and all the messages we get about our bodies. But
I have so many thoughts just coming. Maybe we'll have to do a whole other one.
Yes, I'm like, this might be a 2-part episode now. But I think the getting out of your head piece is almost like a getting out of your body piece too, because yes, a lot of the focus sexually is on like body pleasure, but I think first maybe exploring some of that on your own and like getting comfortable with your body and with your own kind of emotions, and then coming with your partner to coming together on that could be helpful. Because I mean, there's definitely like, I feel good about my body, but I still feel super nervous and uncomfortable initiating sex. And that's kind of unrelated to how I feel about my body. And it's much more rooted in the rejection piece. But yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah. Even having like all the information that I have, I still, this is also like my largest body of my life. And it's still not the largest. And I still struggle with that. I'm definitely the happiest at this size, which is interesting and awesome. Yeah. But I still find myself asking the questions of like, do I want to shave my legs? How do I smell? Like, is my stomach okay? Like sometimes I get a little bit of IBS stuff, like all these different things that go into sex. And that's, it's normal, but it also needs to be a little quieter for me, I think. Like, I think we should all be working towards quieting some of those things, unless they're check-ins, but these are more anxious thoughts than check-ins. So
totally. And I'm curious how you've gone about the not shaving of the legs piece, because I basically went most of summer without shaving my legs. And I remember I was with a guy friend, and I like explicitly told him, I was like, yeah, I'm not shaving my legs all summer because I want to challenge myself to still feel sexy and still feel feminine without shaving my legs. And so I was like, yeah, I might be going out on a boat or I might be going to the beach, but like, I'm not going to shave my legs.
I love that. I'm so glad you did that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I spent some time with it a while back and was like, because I wasn't liking having hairy body parts, and I really sat with it. And it brought up stuff from childhood. It's funny, like my arm hair now is completely, even though I have dark head hair and everything, like my arm hair is super invisible. But as a kid, I have this like vivid memory of having like black arm hair, and I was teased about it constantly. Yeah. Even when I was like even younger, just having like really ridiculous bangs, people teased me. Such silly stuff nowadays. But I was like, what impact is that having on my views now? I was like, is it about feeling feminine? Because I do identify as a woman, but as a femme, which means I'm feminine intentionally so, and for myself, not for the male gaze.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
I like that.
Thank you. There's a lot of definitions to femme, but that is kind of the core of it, I think.
Yeah.
So I ended up, where I've landed with body hair in general is I shave it when I feel like it, and I don't do it out of like necessity. Yeah. So I sweat, I feel like a lot. So I do shave my armpits unless I just forget. So it's more about allowing myself to forget and not worry about how someone else is going to think about it or feel about it.
Totally.
So I do still shave, but definitely for myself now, and it's intentional rather than a default.
Yeah.
And I am a little bit envious of people that don't and can like physically feel comfortable with it. I feel emotionally comfortable with it. I just like it just irritates me for some reason physically. So whatever.
Yeah. I think the only piece that I still struggle with is just with vagina hair and figuring out my place of comfort there, which does play a big part in, feeling sexy and initiating sex and wanting your partner to still find you attractive, and then all the things you see in porn. And like for me, I'll definitely like trim up like my bikini line and stuff before I go out on a beach or something, but I will protest and I won't shave my legs. So I'm like, I'm getting somewhere. And I don't, I've never gotten a wax. I don't ever want to. I feel like it's like mean to do. And I'm like, I feel sorry for her. I'm like, I don't want to harm you like that. Like, I'm sorry.
Same.
And I've definitely challenged myself to be way more comfortable having hair on my vagina. And like if someone doesn't want to hook up with me because I have hair on my vagina, then they're probably not someone I'd want to hook up with anyway.
Amen. That's exactly what I was going to say if you didn't say it.
Yeah.
That's like for people wanting something tangible again to like have in mind to help with this is that's it. Like, do you want to be with someone that's going to deny having a wonderful, sexy time with you because of some hair?
Yeah.
No, you probably don't.
Yeah. And I do think like the older you get, the more comfortable you get with it. And I think even for me, like I remember I had hooked up with this guy and it was our first time like fully hooking up, and I was so not prepared. Like I didn't know we were going to see each other. I didn't know we were going to hook up. And it was not even like a recent trim. It was like weeks without like a check-in down there. And he was so insistent, and it ended up being a wonderful, wonderful time. But afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. But afterwards he had made a comment of like, by the way, like you were way more embarrassed about that than you needed to be. Like it didn't matter. And I was like, yeah, I know. And like, I just definitely was hesitant. If this were someone I was in like a long-term partnership with, I think I would have felt a lot more comfortable. But even just that initial, like, oh my God, this is like the first time we're hooking up and I'm like not prepared. But hearing him say that afterwards, he is significantly older than me. And so part of me was like, I think maybe just like as you get older, people care less. And I very much appreciate that. But it,
there's a maturity to it. It sounds like you kind of had a healing experience, and I love those. I want to welcome everyone to have those. And you have to be open and like lean into maybe some anxiety or discomfort to get there.
Definitely a lot of leaning into discomfort.
Yeah. We're always, our bodies are always ready for sex. Like this is how we are. Like they're just natural bodies. They're ready to go if you're ready to go.
Yeah. I like that. Because, I think as a woman, I feel like I always got to like prepare, you know?
Yeah. Are men preparing? Maybe some, but I don't think they put nearly as much thought, effort, or anxiety or pressure on themselves in the ways that women do. So,
yeah, definitely not. Well, I just want to keep talking. But
yeah. Right.
we've gone a little over. And I just overall want to thank you, and definitely should chat again about more things together. But if people wanted to like find you, if they had questions for you, if someone wanted to come see you at your practice in Philly, where could people kind of contact you or find you or follow you?
Yeah, so my website, I'm pretty easy to find. My website is colbymft.com, and Colby is spelled Colby, like cheese, not like Kobe O'Bryant, which surprisingly I get a lot. So colbymft.com. My social media is all pretty much the same. Colby MFT. Instagram has an underscore, but if you type in Colby MFT anywhere, I should come up. And yes, feel free to follow me, reach out on my website, any of that.
Amazing. And the one thing we didn't get to talk about too, but that you have a therapy dog, and your therapy dog has a little Instagram too.
I do. I have 2 therapy dogs. Only one goes to work with me in that therapy sense. Therapy dogs are traditionally just like the volunteer dogs you see at hospitals, like school events. It just kind of worked out that I was a therapist, and the one does really well in my office setting. So Bronco, the therapy dog, and Russell, the therapy dog, are my dog's Instagrams.
They're so cute. I love them. Well, yeah, we'll have to continue our conversation in another episode one of these days. I would love to have you back on. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and to share everything that you did. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would love to come on again. I had such a wonderful time talking with you, and I'm sure there's so much we didn't even get to dive into.
Definitely. All right. Well, that does it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for making it all the way through this episode. I really hope that you guys take away a lot from the content here today. There's so much more I want to get into, talking about sex workers and ethical porn, and again, more non-monogamy talk. Please let me know. I want to hear feedback from you guys if these kinds of topics are things you would like me to discuss more. All the different kinds of sex we could have, different ways to explore sex with your partner and with yourself individually. I love these kinds of episodes, so please let me know. I need to hear feedback from you guys on what kind of things you guys are benefiting from. So shoot me an email at ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com, or even better, you can leave a review on iTunes, whether it's just leaving a star rating or leaving a little review and letting me know what you're liking about the show or what kinds of content you appreciate on the show. That would be absolutely amazing. So again, doing the podcast, I want you guys to take away things, and I want this to be really helpful information for you guys. These conversations are meant to be very impactful and meaningful. So if they are not having that kind of effect, then I want to change it, and I want to make it impactful for you guys. So always love that feedback. And I'll be back next week with another topic. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Make sure to check out the episode notes to look at some of the links in there about the stuff we talked about in today's episode. And that does it, guys. So I'll talk to you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.